All right, let's call the Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee meeting of May 7th to order. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from April 2nd. Are there any comments, edits,
So moved.
motions? Motion?
To approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. We have 635 Sagamore, their old business. They've requested to postpone. We're still working on the third-party reviews for that project. Item A under new business, the request of Friends of Lafayette House owner for property located at 413 Lafayette Road, requesting site plan approval for a 635 square foot addition with associated site improvements. Said property is located on Assessor Map 230, Lot 23A, and lies in the Single Residence B District.
Thank you. Joe Coronati, Jones and Beach Engineers. So we were here the last, at your pre-TAC meeting, you had some, couple of comments. I think the main one was to get the utilities located on the property, which we hired a utility locating company. They went out, and they did that, and they proved out that the water line and the gas line to the existing building run behind the building and out to Andrew Jarvis. And the sewer line comes in as shown on the plan from that side. So there's no utilities in the way of the addition, which I think was a key element. Therefore, all the utility work for this addition will be internal. No exterior lines need to be relocated. And then we've submitted a site plan set. It's a fairly similar to the pre-TAC meeting set that you saw. We asked for a bunch of waivers. I saw your comments for this meeting. It seems like you didn't have too many concerns on this project going forward, just the green building statement and two additional waivers, one for bonding and one for site review agreement.
Yep.
And we're okay with. We'll submit those as well. I might have to figure out which section they're in, but I'll do that and then get those submitted. We have somebody working on the green building statement, but that does not, it's more of a question, that does not have to be done by an architect, correct? That can be done by a...
Right, there's no requirement for who does it. But.
All right. And do building plans have to be done, stamped by an architect, or can they be stamped by a professional engineer?
It's under the square footage. You won't need a, I don't think you're going to need a stamp, because I believe you do fall under the square footage. I'm going to have to double check.
The guy that's drawing the plans is a registered professional engineer. He's just not an architect.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that trumps
You asked that.
Anyway, yeah.
All right.
Very good. Yeah.
That's good. That was one of the questions that came up on our end, and I was like, I don't know the answer to that. I have nothing else.
Okay. Any additional comments from TAC members?
You will have to extend the sprinkler system in the fire alarm.
Yes.
I wasn't here, but
Right.
All right, I'll open up for any public comment. Anyone present or on Zoom? If you're on Zoom and like to speak to this, raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion and open it back up for discussion or motion.
Make a motion to send this to the planning board?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Are they out there?
I think.
There. Why don't you talk about putting in an actual firewall?
Is that Peter
But I
that's
guess
second?
now, no.
The Peter sector.
Yeah, they're going to sprinkle it too, so it'd be like an accessory.
Oh, they would do 2 hour.
It's already sprinkled.
Yeah, just take it all.
It's like 3 more heads.
Now they could, then they
Way
could.
cheaper than that.
Yeah. Thus, then they can continue to communicate. You wouldn't have to go out and then back in.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you
I know.
wanted that. Sorry for that.
Good afternoon.
Okay, item B, under new business, is the request of Oak Street Real Estate Capital owner, 100 Durgan Lane, owner LLC applicant for property located at 100 Durgan Lane, requesting subdivision approval of a lot line adjustment and site plan review approval for the demolition of the existing buildings and the construction of 360 rental housing units in a mix of 3-story and 4-story buildings, with associated site improvements including parking, pedestrian access, community spaces, utilities, stormwater management, lighting, and landscaping. Said property is located on Assessor Map 239, Lot 18, and lies within the Gateway Corridor District. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Brett Benson. I'm a principal at UTEAL. We're the architects for the project. I'm joined by Patrick Crimmins, Ty and Bond, Andrew Hayes representing the owner, and Nick Aceto of Aceto Landscape Architects. And we're going to really briefly cover a couple of these introductory slides that we have up here on the page. If you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, please. All right, wonderful. So we want to just quickly remind everybody of our project objectives. Number one, first and foremost, conforming with the existing zoning that is in place on the site. And to that end, really want to create a very sensitively scaled residential development, one that prioritizes public space, urban design, and access to open spaces throughout the site. We are proposing a very low site impact, which you'll see in some of the figures that are following, one that encourages multimodal connectivity, and we want to pursue a number of sustainable building strategies that we can detail for all of you. Next slide, please. Overall, we're proposing 360 market rate residential apartments. Those are a mix of studio, 1-bed, and 2-bedroom units. It's also a mix of 3- and 4-story buildings that are 12 and 24 units each. There's one resident clubhouse on the building, 567 parking spaces. So that's actually a decrease of 13 parking spaces from the last time we were with you all at the work session. And overall, we're proposing approximately 3 acres, over 130,000 square feet of community space on this site. Next. So I wanted to really briefly review some of the key points that we heard at the Planning Board work session, the TAC, and in our meeting with Concom. At Planning Board, prioritizing public space, that was a big deal for the Planning Board, one that I think you'll see in our site plan. Accounting for easements and maintenance, looking at utility capacity, and looking at some studies that we've already undertaken. So a traffic study, looking at highway noise overlay, which we've included in our submission, and looking at solar panels, EV, and a coast bus stop, all of which we've studied and we can talk about in the following figures. Next slide. We met with all of you March 12th for a work session. You all asked us to look at opportunities for enhancing the wetlands, studying the access to the Hampton Inn, which we can talk about how we've done some changes there in the following figures. Vehicle parking planning, there were some comments around that, as well as some of the comments that you gave us on Monday. We've asked us to look at snow removal, so we can talk about some of that. Lot line adjustments, again, easement modifications, and some of the third-party studies, and again, solar panel readiness, EV charging, and wayfinding, which we can talk a little bit about coming up as well. I can go through some of the residential building planning as we look at the plans. Next. And then finally, we had a Concom work session, which was immediately following a site visit. There was a request from Concom to reduce impervious areas, especially in the wetland buffer. So aim for net negative new impervious or neutral, and you can see that we're now net negative. And also study removing some of the parking and driveways from the buffer. They asked us to look at locating some of the public open space at the edges of the development to encourage community use, which we've done, and study some of the grading to retain the existing rain gardens, look at a third-party wetland delineation, which is in progress, and also solar panel and EV charging. Next slide, and I'm going to hand it to Patrick.
Thanks, Brett. So we submitted what we believe is a pretty comprehensive package. I won't go through each item in detail. They're listed on the front cover letter for this submission, but the project is going to require a number of permits. It's going to require a lot line revision, site plan review permit. We're going to need a conditional use permit for the site development standards because we're providing more than one building on the site. We are in the noise overlay district, so we will need a CUP for that. We did provide a noise ordinance, noise study, within the package, and we're also going to need a wetland conditional use permit for work within the buffer. This first graphic here, it's just taking the existing conditions plan, and in response, we actually appreciate you guys, as always, sending the comments in advance. It really helps with us to set up the presentation, coming in here and having a productive discussion. So we created this exhibit actually this morning just to display the lot line revision itself. There are currently 3 lots on this site. So depicted here is that existing condition with the vacant building and the 3 lots. Peter, if you want to go to the next slide. And then what you can see here, the green is the existing lines, which actually go partially through, go through several of the buildings, and then the red is the proposed, which was to adjust these lot lines into 3 lots. Peter, if you want to go to the next one. So this was the result of what was included in the package. We believe that we looked at this from a, planning and project-specific, layout, and felt that it worked well with the site. However, we do recognize, that staff has identified that maybe this needs to be studied a little bit further, just given its irregular shape through the center of the site. So we did want to acknowledge that. We did prepare this just to demonstrate how the 3 lots would be reconfigured, but understanding that there'll probably be some further dialogue and study on this plan as well. Next page, please. So this is the site plan that was included in the package. As I mentioned, we need a site plan review permit and a conditional use permit for the site development standards. Site access will remain the same as the existing condition, with the primary access coming off of Durgan, and you also have access over from the Motel 6 site and the Home Depot. All those accesses will remain. They'll be slightly changed. We'll be adjusting the easements as needed, which is reflected in this package. We'll touch on them very quickly later in the slide presentation. Depicted here is the 360 units, the 16 residential buildings with the community building, mixed in with parking and obviously what we believe is some real meaningful open space, community space. To the top right of the site plan is the development requirements, and you can see there what we're trying to demonstrate there is that the project is conforming with zoning. There was a comment number 6 within the staff comments that said, please provide an explanation of compliance with section 10(5)B 4170. So that comment is acknowledged. We do believe, as demonstrated here in the zoning, that we comply, but what we'll do for the next package is develop some exhibits that can further demonstrate compliance with that specific ordinance so that it's very clear. Moving down to the parking, again, just demonstrating how we comply with the parking regulations. This site does comply. We're not seeking any relief. We're not seeking a CUP for parking. We're providing 567 spaces. That's based on just studying the market and understanding really what would be needed for a site like this. It's very suburban in nature. This isn't downtown. So to get to it, you're really probably going to need a car. As much as we want to introduce pedestrian activity to this site, it is a little isolated. So that is the reasoning that we have provided 567 spaces, which does comply. Just kind of moving around the site, I mentioned the access, all 3 points. We did perform a traffic study, recognizing the comment from staff that a peer review will be required. We acknowledge that and understand that that will need to be done. We actually just completed that study. Included in your package was a trip generation memorandum describing, the existing uses versus the proposed uses. We were able to complete the study. Since then, overlaying those trips into the traffic counts that we were able to obtain. We just got the crash data, I believe yesterday, late last week, so we're able to finish that study. We will submit that and coordinate with staff in order to get that peer review underway. So that's kind of an overview of the site plan. Peter, if you want to go on the next slide, please. And we included some graphics just to kind of back up Brett's points about low impact on the site and improvement. Here you can see throughout the site we're reducing impervious surface by almost 1/4 of an acre. Peter, if you want to go to the next slide, please. We included these slides. These are probably more applicable to the conditional use permit for the Conservation Commission, but just demonstrating that within all the 3 different sections of the buffer that we are reducing buffer impact. Peter, next slide. And then this one, it's a similar slide, but kind of, I think, graphically really shows, where the proposed versus existing impact that's being removed to show that net decrease on the site. Next slide, please. We did include some fire truck turning exhibits throughout the site just to demonstrate that the Portsmouth vehicle can make it through the site. Next slide. This is another fire truck turning. Thanks. Next slide. This is the grading and drainage plan. So what we've done here is, we have several systems throughout, treatment units, underground detention. We've integrated some rain garden applications as well. We recognize staff feedback and comments relative to stormwater. We recognize that a peer review is going to be required for this, which was comment 15. We acknowledge that, and we'll get that underway with staff as well. That was comment 9. Comment 15 was that the city requires a stormwater demand analysis. We did include a drainage study analysis within the package. It will be further detailed because we are going to be required to prepare an alteration of terrain permit application. So that will be completed. We actually have completed test pits on the site, so we'll be able to address item 10 as well, which provides soil profiles for possible infiltration. So that'll be looked at, and what we'll be doing is providing the full alteration of terrain package for that stormwater peer review. With respect, there was one other comment to the stormwater. It was relative to the hotel. It was asking us to connect the stormwater upstream of PDMH3. Peter, if you want to go to the next slide. You'll see we have 2 parallel pipes here. What we were trying to do was keep the site's stormwater separated from the hotel stormwater, so we can study this further. We haven't had a chance to look at the impact of what that would be, but the thought process here and the way it is designed currently was that we were trying to maintain separation between our site stormwater design and the hotel site stormwater design. Peter, if you want to go to the utilities plan. So the utilities plan is included. You can see water, sewer, electric throughout the site. We recognize that we are going to need to provide a water demand and sewer demand analysis for the city's review. That's already in process with so that Weston and Sampson can look at it with their model. We've also, one of the comments that was in staff report was comment number 14, which was confirmed that Unitel can supply gas to the site. These buildings are going to be heated with electricity, so there's actually no additional natural gas demand on the site. We just need to relocate the hotel's natural gas pipeline because it conflicts with the proposed design, so we plan to do that and coordinate that with Unitel. Peter, if you want to go to the next slide. Just more of the utilities. Again, we're water, sewer, electric shown here. Peter, next slide. We did receive a comment from staff, comment number 4. Please show all necessary easements through each parcel for the new lots. There's 3 sheets within the package that demonstrate the easements. Obviously, the site is encumbered by a number of easements already, so we are working with the abutters to relocate those easements appropriately and maintain access and utility services. And then I should have addressed this actually right back at the site plan, but I'll do it now while we're talking about the easements. With respect to the hotel, that was one of the comments that we did get feedback from you folks on with respect to access to the hotel. You'll see that we have moved the drive out of the center of the residential and created its separate connection over to the south of the site there. So that is part of what's represented here on the relocation of the easement and then providing that separate access We also note that there was a comment from staff about teeing that driveway off into the intersection, because as it was designed, it's probably only designed for a right turnout. So we acknowledge that. We'll study it further and look to improve that layout at that angle. Next slide, Peter. So just some more of the easements here. Again, these are the utility drainage easements for the site. And then lastly, we included an easement plan for, next slide, Peter, for the community space easements themselves. So this is the community space, which is a good segue for me to turn it over to Nick. He can talk about the community spaces that were implemented in his design and the landscape design.
If I could just actually add one comment in regards to the Hampton Inn easement. So that is still subject to approval with the Hampton Inn. We are engaged in conversation with them on that, as well as some of the temporary logistics. And as soon as we have kind of firmer understanding on that, we'll report back to the group here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you could advance to the next slide. So this is a community space exhibit that we created just to illustrate the variety of community spaces that we've created in the plan. So the plan is really organized around the concept of creating kind of a Main Street condition along the Durgan Lane extension there that you see through the center of the site, running plan north and south. We placed a community building that you can see that kind of has a staggered massing just to the lower right of the Durgan Lane extension at the corner, so kind of creating a threshold experience as you enter the site. And then just plan north of that, you can see we've concentrated a lot of the gathering community space toward the center, the core of the site, and then kind of radiating out a lot of smaller kind of courtyards and pocket park types of spaces. So we have a large variety of community spaces. And this is really kind of the framework of the plan that we've worked really closely with UTIL and the engineering team on, and the building massing, kind of helping define all those varieties of rooms and spaces. Next slide. So this is the materials plan that's building on that community space plan. Again, the materials plan helps kind of program and identify these different community spaces through the use of different paving materials in the site. So we have at least 3 different types of paving materials, cast in place concrete that kind of runs through the site and creates a connection and a visual connection to the open spaces out beyond, and then expanded sidewalks along Durgan Lane extension, creating that Main Street feel with a cadence of street trees, and then as you get toward the center of the site, more exposed aggregate and decomposed granite, creating kind of softer spaces for people to gather. Next slide. This is the planting plan. So again, kind of building on the community space plan and using planting to help define all these different spaces. One of the comments that we got was regarding the variety and types of plantings that we're using on the site. So we're thinking of incorporating all native species, using shade trees to, again, help kind of create a sense of cadence and kind of visual narrowing of the streets as you drive through the site. And then also helping define kind of these outdoor rooms and creating a sense of enclosure. This plan, I will point out in particular, we haven't gotten to the specifics of identifying species and layout of specific shrubs and perennials. We plan to do that on the next submission. I think with that, we can talk a little bit about lighting. So this is a lighting plan that we've been working on with the lighting designer. We have pole lights along all the driveways and parking lots, and then bollards, kind of lower lighting within the pedestrian circulation spaces. We have catenary lighting within the common area in the center of the site. Those are almost like kind of overhead string lights or festival lighting, just to create a sense of kind of that pedestrian scale. We're really trying to keep lighting to a low level, keep it down directed, shielded, kind of respect the dark sky kind of guidance. Yeah, I think that's about it.
So I know that you folks had given us these comments. I think we touched on pretty much all of them as part of our presentation, but if there was any specific comments that you wanted us to go through once again, or if there were any additional comments, we'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Brett has to go.
I do have a few things.
I'm out of order, sorry.
I just wanted to add a couple things relative to this site plan and then very quickly walk through the building floor plans. First one is there was a comment about wayfinding last time around, and one that we're taking very seriously. We're really kind of considering three categories of visitors to the site. One is hotel guests, and so we have adjusted our access plan from Durgan Lane so that there's a direct driveway access to the Hampton Inn that doesn't go through the residential areas of the site. That's going to be supplemented by signage, so it's very clear as hotel guests who might be arriving here for the first time know where to go to get to the Hampton Inn. The second one is visitors to the site to use the community spaces, and so we see that as more of a design problem that we'll continue to study as the design unfolds. And then the third one is for the residents themselves and their guests. And again, that's a design issue that we'll continue to study as the project gets further along in design. I wanted to touch on the solar panel readiness and EV parking. So as part of our highway noise overlay area, which is on the western half of the site or the upper part of the page that's shown here on the site plan, we did identify that through our acoustic analysis, some amount of mitigation is required. That could take the form of an acoustic fence along that western property line next to the highway that wraps around to the south. One thing that we're studying also is the potential for covered parking through carports along that edge, which might also host solar panels. So we are in conversations with Eversource about the ability to use solar panels there to supplement the electricity usage on the site. So we'll be able to give you more details on future submissions relative to that. And in terms of EV parking, we're looking at least 1 to 2 EV ready or EV parking spaces on day one with a potential capacity for additional. We'll continue to study that, and we'll fine tune those numbers as we go through this process. In terms of some of the day-to-day features of the project, you all had asked us about mail and package. That will be centralized in the community building. So when you come in off of Durgan Lane, that's the first building in the plan that's kind of jagged in plan. We see that as a great benefit to a sense of community for the residents here. So that will all be centralized in one place in a very spacious mail room and package room to accommodate all the packages that are kind of part of day-to-day life these days. And then trash management will be handled on a building-by-building basis. So each building, you'll see in the floor plans, has space for a trash room so that residents can bring their trash to that space. All right, with that, then we can really quickly go through the floor plans. We have really 2 building types with one variation. There are 9 elevator buildings on the site and 7 walk-up buildings. The walk-up buildings are 3 stories tall. They are variations of a single stair egress type building, which I can go through in detail if you all would prefer. But for now, I'll leave it in terms of these floor plans. On the right-hand side is the ground floor plan. That rectangle in gray that you see, that is the trash room, as well as some of the other building services like an electric room and water room and so on. You can go to the next slide. There are some building elevations that we've included. Then on the next slide, you can see this is another variation of the 3-story building. It's really 2 of them back-to-back joined by a firewall, so 2 single-stair buildings. These buildings are, there's no elevator, so all of the ground floor units will be fully accessible of the type A and type B variety. And then if you move forward, you'll see the building elevations on the next 2 slides here and the next slide after that. And then the last slide here is the 4-story building. This is an elevator building, a little bit more of a traditional double-loaded corridor building. Again, the ground floor is shown on the right-hand side. That larger gray rectangle is dedicated for the trash room. We're also imagining that bike storage will be centralized and shared between two buildings on the site and will be located on the ground floor here as well. These buildings being elevator buildings, all of the units will be accessible of the Type A and Type B variety. And then I think you can see building elevations on the next slide. And then after that should be our, the community building, which you can see our centralized mail and package in that kind of darker brown toned area in the center of the plan. And then there's some building elevations of this as well on the next slide. This will be a single-story building. We can talk about cladding materials if you all are interested. And I think that should be the last slide. Thank you.
I just want to interject one clarification in regards to the EV charging. Our intent is between 1 and 2 stations per building.
Right.
So somewhere between 20 and 30 across the site.
Is that it for the presentation?
It is.
While we're talking about the buildings and the elevations, it looked like there was 1 or 2 entrances on the buildings. Just wondering about the design you've got. They're kind of like apartment building designs, but the street layout kind of seems more like a neighborhood. And I was wondering if you thought about doing something more like a townhouse kind of design where you'd walk in from the front, and why you chose this over that. Given the size of the building and the scale of the site, it seems like apartment buildings might be bigger on a site like that if you're going to do that.
Sure. So we have a kind of a mix of buildings. Like I said, the one that's on the screen here is the 4-story building. That is the elevator building. And maybe, Peter, if you wouldn't mind backing up a couple of slides and we can show a 3-story building here. So this building is oriented around an entry courtyard. I'm sorry, I don't have a laser pointer. I can't point it out to you, but I'll catch it. Thank you so much. All right, all right. And it doesn't show on the screen, does it? No, it doesn't work. Well, if you can imagine, it's a backward-facing sea, and there's a central courtyard. As we have talked about residents living on this site, we've talked quite a bit about it in terms of the team in the detail and the resident experience. We very much want the sidewalks to feel public and open and bustling and open both to the residents and to visitors from outside the site who are using the community spaces. And that means that we also need to create layers of kind of semi-private, semi-public space so that it doesn't feel like your front door is right on to the busy sidewalk. And so for us, we've incorporated this idea of a courtyard in this building where there is a shared entry area, and then you walk into a modestly scaled corridor, and then you have your front door. The way we kind of describe it is layers of an onion that you peel back before you get into your apartment, your home. And then on the larger building, on the 4-story buildings, and maybe, Peter, if I ask you to keep going backwards to the overall site plan, is we've organized each of these 4-story buildings around a shared courtyard as well. So that's a little bit of a larger scale, the elevator building being a little bit of a larger feel, or maybe a little bit more of an urban feel. And so those courtyards are shared between 2 buildings and gives a different experience to the residents, so that there's really a variety of offerings across the site, so it feels more kind of vibrant.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, open it up for any comments from TAC members. I had a comment about the parking located in the shared street. I don't know if we would, I think there are how many, 6 spaces?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we need to look at that, if we would count those in the community space. I was just looking at the shared multimodal definition. But if you'd be able to forego those spaces, or
I think one of our intentions with those spaces was that it also provides us an opportunity to program that space for residents and for the community at large. So think, for example, potential food trucks But certainly from a kind of traditional parking perspective, I think we could limit the use there. And I think that, we're open to that.
Okay, thanks.
One comment I had was maybe I missed it, but I didn't see the full lot out to, on your subdivision plan or on your lot plans, going all the way out to Gosling. Do you show it all the way over?
It's not depicted in these exhibits. It will be a part of we have it surveyed, full boundary, and it will be part of the formal lot line revision plan. We just haven't developed the lot line revision plan because we still have to work through the configuration of the lot, but yeah, it'll be included for sure.
And are you counting frontage off of Gosling or frontage off of the circle here?
We have frontage on Durgan here.
Just Durgan. And so are you going to build out what's going on with the circle there? Are you going to build out the circle?
That was actually a comment from staff about providing a turnaround. We did look at that. It's constrained because the lot lines are a little odd. It's like a half cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
but it doesn't allow for a full cul-de-sac with the way it pinches on the other property lines. So we don't have the ability to do a full cul-de-sac, and to put a turnaround in there, we'd be putting more impervious surface in the buffer, but we are open to studying it further if it's something that staff really feels is needed.
And how does the trash and the delivery circulation go through the site?
So we're still developing the precise trash removal plan, but we're imagining that either a trash truck or the staff will collect the trash from each building, and that it'll be done kind of at the building by building location. As for the package delivery, all of the packages will be delivered to a central location at the community building. And there's some parking nearby, so the delivery vans will have parking to go to, and they're not blocking the driveways.
And that's the same with the mail? That's the mail building?
It's in the mail as well, yep.
So everybody has to go to that building to get their mail?
Yes, everybody gets to go to that building.
I should also note, we are exploring an opportunity to partner with a new concept, which is called effectively a trash valet, which includes the pickup service within the building itself. So that's something that we're evaluating as opposed to kind of bin removal, and we'll continue to explore that. But the long and the short of it is we're intending for that to be localized to each of the buildings. Peter, just one other note to follow up on your earlier question regarding the frontage on Gosling. I should just remind all of us collectively that that portion of the lot is encumbered by the conservation easement
Right.
with the city, correct?
Right. And is your intention that the solar canopy along the highway would actually be sound reduction?
Yeah, so what we'll continue to study is using that covered parking with a carport to have a wall.
And if it'd be three-sided?
It'd be it would be two-sided, the two sides that are facing the area, it's kind of facing to the west and the south, which is the upper portion of the plan, and the left portion of the plan that the acoustic analysis told us it needs to be mitigated. And that would be with a heavier weight wall to block the noise, and then there'd be a covering over that with a solar canopy.
Question on the parking spaces up the main street here, up the middle here. You have the head-in parking on the right and the parallel parking on the left. Any thoughts of flipping those? I'm thinking more traffic's going to come in here and wanting to park in that direction, whereas you can really technically only park in the proper direction if you come around the top and down to those spaces.
The only, I guess, the only explanation, we did think about that, and we can explore it, but with the head-in spaces on the right, we were trying to mitigate headlights into the building on the left-hand side, where if you have head-in parking directly there, you'll be parking directly in front of ground floor units.
I'd say the other conversation point we've had internally is that between the community building that will have the leasing office function and the large community spaces that are on the right-hand side of that road attracting visitors, that head-in parking might feel more familiar to visitors to the site, whereas the parallel parking might be more comfortable for those who are used to parking on the parallel parking, so maybe more the residents.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the wetland third party.
Yeah, they've started
started
that
that.
work. They're not complete yet.
And then Weston and Sampson, third party. And then did you say traffic? Do you want a traffic
And stormwater.
and storm? Well, any other comments at this time? Or let's see if we have any public comment. Liz? Go. Okay.
You want to say hello?
You can just cross out the things that you don't like on that list.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth Ratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I looked at the sound analysis, and as I put in my letter to you, it was done very well. I don't know who did it, but congratulations. There were just a question of whether there was a control run to make sure that the numbers that were put into the computer are accurate, and that's a little test that you do, and I was curious if that had happened. I know there's no back and forth. The other thing that I noticed, Peter, if you can bring up the site plan that has the landscaping green stuff, they showed that the park on the south end was going to have a sound barrier of sorts, but the park on the north end does not show a sound barrier, and it's actually, yeah. See the one on the right there in the upper right? It's actually closer to the Spalding Turnpike than the one on the left. So that was a question. My other question is when you dig out all of this property to put in buildings, there's going to be a lot of fill left, and my suggestion would be to run that fill along the property line where the Spalding Turnpike is to reduce your noise and put trees across it. The windows work a little bit. I live next to the Spalding Turnpike, and I can tell you, yeah, your best bet is a wall, not a window. But if you are going to have windows on that side, lots of bathrooms have no windows, by the way. But you can have closets, you can have all kinds of stuff that have no windows, and put your windows on the end more. But if you're going to take out fill anyway, you might as well move it on that back part of the lot closer to the Spalding. You can save money, and you can also cut down that noise. If you look at the New Hampshire DOT information on doing that, on creating berms, they are much more effective than planting trees. Years ago, when Pease was still alive, I was the mother who drove everybody's kids home from Girl Scouts because I was the leader. And we used to go onto Pease Housing, and Pease Housing was very similar to this. It had spaces for green space and other things. And there were no circles. They were just stop signs. So my thought was that where you come in, if you're going to the Hampton and you're going to go left, if you get in there into that development, you can turn around anywhere, and it looks like it's pretty well square in terms of going right to get back out again. So I don't necessarily think there needs to be a circle there, but stop signs would be definitely helpful, because as someone who goes to Home Depot just about every day, I can tell you that I spend a lot of time on your property. My other suggestion, can you go to the picture that has all of that shows the areas between the hotels, the Motel 6 and that. Any help on that number? It shows the road coming in much better than that one. That's good. Go back one. There it is. Perfect. So my other suggestion was, as someone who travels behind Motel 6 on a regular basis, I've been driving our truck lately because my car needs a new battery. So it's a very large truck, and as you come into Motel 6, it's a little tight. It's not really made for two-way traffic with their parking. But once you get to that end there, that where your property begins, as far as I know, or maybe that's an easement, I would suggest that become one-way only going inward. And that way, if you do actually get tenants who are going to go to Pease, you won't have them coming out and attempting to navigate Motel 6's swished parking lot. So make that all one way in. And then if people need to go to Pease, they can come out and use the light system that exists. If they go out that way, they're going to do exactly what some people in my family do, and that's take a right, hop onto the left-hand turn, bang a U, and then drive towards Pease. So to avoid that, if you've got 360 people, 350 people living there, well, more than that, probably close to 700, you don't want them coming out that way. You want them coming out as you had originally planned, which is there. And I don't care what your traffic study tells you. The truth is that that's what people do in general. In regards to the pole lights, if you go down there now, there's I think it's a Pet Boys, I'm not good on the car names, right next to your property line, and their parking lot in the back where you show your green space has really low pole lights. And that parking lot is well lit. I've been out there at night before, and you can see fine. You don't need those massive pole lights. They really are irritating when you're driving around in general. So if you can make them as low as possible, they're probably cheaper too. In regards to the package drop-off, if I send a package to my niece, I notify her weeks ahead of time because she does not go to the package drop-off or to the mailroom because they do everything online nowadays, these nice young people like you guys. And, you know, they don't ever get a mail, and if they get a package, there's a picture of where it is, but there's 25 other people who went in there and picked up a package. So you might want to think about how you can secure your packages or notify tenants about that. Let's see. Oh, so the green space and the wetlands are a big issue for me. And buildings, let me see, I wrote it down. 10 and 11, well, it's actually 11 and 10, and 13 and 12, in my opinion, could be moved more into that middle green space, a little bit back, move your parking closer to the windows on the lower spot, and then make it building, parking lot, green space, sorry, and then the wetlands. Only on that side. And the reason I say that is because it may eliminate the need for you have a retaining wall there, you may not need that if that's green space. And having stayed in hotels recently, most hotels have the parking right up against the building. There's the sidewalk, and then and it really is not a big issue because they usually have halfway decent curtains on their windows so that you can't see the bright lights coming in and out. So to me, it really won't make a difference. I've lived in apartment complexes in Florida where all the parking was around the outside, and the middle of the inside the buildings was a giant green space. So you had a playground there, and it pretty much captivated everything. And the people who lived on the parking side often liked it because they got out with their groceries and could literally walk into their apartment. I don't know if that green space order needs to be kept. You could do building, parking lot, green space or public area, and then the wetlands. It would get you out of that 100-foot buffer and the 50-foot buffer. I know a lot of people talked about one of the meetings that I went to with you guys. They talked about a dog park, which is great, and I'm sure the people at the hotels will appreciate it, but I would highly suggest that you make sure it's away from the wetlands and also away from the storm drains, because that's a big problem now in the waterways. Dog feces is, a big issue for the oyster people. So if you want to keep that in mind. I think that's it for me. I look forward to your next reiteration. Thanks. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom like to speak? Raise your hand. Are they all part of your team? Or?
Yeah.
All right, we'll close the public portion. And any further discussion? motion. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Entertain a motion to postpone or continue this one.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, we are adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Second, we are.
That's the fastest motion.